Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to the 25th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic. This is my co-host, Andrew Norman. And today we've got Mikey K here with us. And we are three souls on the path of recovery. How are you, Mike? And would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on here. A little bit about myself. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm coming up on 11 years of complete abstinence. Work a 12-step program, and I've definitely found a new way of life in it. And I get to meet some very interesting and amazing people like you guys.
Wow, likewise. And so could you tell us what the pivotal moment when the program sparked a recovery fire in your heart? Because I know from the little bit I've heard of you on our interaction on Marco Polo, you've got a recovery fire sparked in your heart. There's no doubt about that.
So, a long time ago, I started going to these 12-step meetings at this program, and I had no intentions on being there. I had no intentions on getting clean. I had found myself in trouble with the law again, and I still believed I could control my using of any substance. And this thing's so powerful, it works without our permission sometimes. And I had about 52 days clean, and I went to an event, and they had a lot of speakers from out of state come in, and it was the first time I had been to a meeting, and this had happened. And what it was because we go to meetings and we hear people speaking, right? And that's, they're sharing their experience, strength, and hope. And I was so unique, I believed, that it was never going to work, and I didn't belong there, and you guys didn't know what you were talking about, right? And there's a line in the 12th step that says, we greet each other with recognition reserved for survivors of the same near fatal catastrophe. And I didn't know anything about empathy. And so at 52 days clean, I walked into this event, and for the first time in my life, I didn't hear people talking, I felt them talking. Right. And in that moment, I knew, that's exactly what
I got
happened.
goosebumps. You just saying that.
You don't even hear the words.
Like,
you just feel it. You feel it.
I felt it, and I didn't surrender to it, and I didn't want it because it scared me. But I knew for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone, that somebody understood.
Almost like drugs were the first time, right? Like you do drugs and they're uncomfortable, but it's like, hey, but let's lean into it.
Okay, so you felt the power of the program there. But when was it like you knew that this was going to work for you and you wanted it no matter what, and you put in your time and work for, like, when did that fire, like right there, that was your spark, but when did the fire just take off inside you?
I'm gonna say the fire really took off when I got involved with sponsorship. My first sponsor I got when I had 6 months clean, and I was like, all right, let's give this a shot and see what happens. And another line, I'm big on literature, is that those who get the most out of this program are those to whom sponsorship is important. Yes. Right. And I wanted the most out of my dope. I wanted my most out of the prostitute. I wanted the most out of that pharmacy when I went up in there. Right. I want the most out of my recovery.
Yes, I love that. I love the recovery fire. So earlier this week, Andrew and we started a series. We're going to do a part 1 and part 2, Courage for Christmas. Andrew said he had talked to you, mentioned this topic. You were fully in on it. And so just tell us, if you could, we'll start with you. Is like what courage means to you and why you'd enjoy to talk about this subject.
Courage is a beautiful thing. It's something to tap into and to draw on. Listen, for anybody to stop using drugs and find a new way of life is probably the most courageous thing I think a human being can do. You know, people that aren't like us, they just don't understand. They're like, why don't you just stop? You know, and like I don't try to like push my beliefs on anybody. Like they can believe what they want. This is what I believe, and you know what? I live a very beautiful life today. So like courage, man. You know, the third step says that the God of our understanding is our greatest source of strength and courage. So I need to draw off that power, and I struggled with that. For it took me courage just to be able to say the word God out loud in front of people, right? I'm the guy that used to resent a God I didn't even believe in, supposedly, and you know, yeah. So I didn't realize how ridiculous that was. So like, yeah, courage, it takes a lot of courage to wake up in the morning, especially in the beginning when we're stuck in the obsession, the never-ending stream of thoughts of the finding ways and means of getting more, you know,
Mhm.
always about the next one. And to do something different that I've never done before. You know, I know a guy in Arizona, and every time he shares, when he gets done, he says, I'm going to do the most unnatural thing an addict can do, and I'm not going to use today. And like that's pretty courageous because I don't know what it's like to not. I know what it was like to not use because I couldn't get one, but I didn't know what it was like to not use because I just didn't want that anymore. And you know, going and asking people for things like a job. You know, I wasn't very employable, and
Humility, asking for
yeah,
help.
and asking for help. But then when they say no, and they say, why such a big gap in your employment history, right?
That rejection.
And it's like, how do I tell them? Well, I was in prison those years, and then I
Wow.
was slinging dope in between, and then I was back in prison again. Then they're going to want to know why. And like the people in Narcotics Anonymous taught me, like, hey, you can answer the question without saying any of that stuff. You can say you were having mental health problems. You can say you were doing these things. You're participating in service work. So you can say you volunteer with a peer-to-peer based program and fill in, and employers like seeing volunteering. So it took a lot of courage to reach out and say, how do I not give up? How do I not give up? I hear it all the time. I've got 7 felonies on my record, and a couple of them are violent crimes. Like nobody's ever gonna give me a job. You know, I can proudly say today I'm going into my 9th year in an amazing career, and I have one hell of a reputation in multiple states for it.
Yeah.
You know, courage is my active addiction was fueled by hate and driven by fear, right? And courage is placing that down and learning what the true meaning of anonymity is. That like we're all on the same playing field, and we're all equal, and I can get something from every one of you, and I have something to offer. Courage is believing in myself, right? Courage is showing up and doing the most basic things that I do today, but it was so difficult in the beginning because I just didn't know how.
Nice.
Um,
Love that. Love
yeah,
that.
just
Love that,
just a
man.
lot, a
Mhm.
lot. I listen. I could do a 1 hour session on courage.
Well, we're about to do an hour
You
and a
were,
half,
we
so you
are,
came
yeah,
to
we're
the
getting
right
ready
place
Perfect.
to,
today.
yep, yep, yep. I was gonna go with a quick round of questions. I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask you quick first, Milan, and then we'll come to you, Mikey. What steps can you take to cultivate, today, now that you're in recovery, what steps can you take to cultivate a more courageous mindset?
I think for myself, it all starts with honesty. Like, it starts with me actually getting through my delusions, through my step work, and seeing what it is that's really in front of me. Like for me, I need to have my honesty right there to actually say, hey, I'm reflecting the world as it is, and I'm not the turbid water distorting it. And then, you know, um, I'm going to come back to my favorite, acceptance. You
Acceptance,
know,
know that.
well,
Yep.
because like
If it works, it works,
I
man.
don't, I don't have to enjoy being courageous. Like some of the things don't feel good. Like, I mean, some of the amends that I've had to make don't feel good while I'm
Mhm.
doing them. And that's required courage. But I've accepted that that's what I need to do to not be sick anymore. And, like my primary goal right now is to you know, learn acceptance over my life. And I feel like that is going to be my key to unfolding everything else in my life. And, my problems, like even yesterday, my problem was with acceptance. If we go right down to the nitty gritty of like my acceptance or lack of acceptance is really creates my state of mind if I let it, and that's what, I want to bring into my life. I want to plant the garden of acceptance and pick the fruit of serenity. That's where I want to be in the future. And so it takes courage. And courage has a lot of components. First of all, like my daughter used to say to me, "Dad, you're really brave. You're not afraid of anything." And I would say to her, "No, I'm afraid of everything, but I won't let fear rule my life." Like I could spend my whole life afraid in a box and never go out and face anything. But it's just like, it's kind of like that moment when you reach the crest on a roller coaster and you're like, holy shit. And then you go down the hill and you're like, oh, that's it. And like,
And then it was fun.
then
Then
it
you're
was,
like,
it was
it was
fun, but
exhilarating.
it was exhilarating, but you're also like, well, like, I didn't need to cry or whatever you did the first time when you were a little kid on one. And, I feel like my anticipatory anxiety is generally more painful than the actual event, be it physical,
Mm.
be it mental, be it conversational with another person. Like I can out anticipate an event, like and make it, like I remember so many times when I'd be high and it would be like I'd have to work the next day, and the last 4 hours of my party were destroyed by me worrying about going to work. And then I'd go to work and my clients were like all cool, and I'd be like, oh, I was like, I wasted half a night of stress into this anticipatory thing. And, most of the things I feel like that require courage are me managing my brain about it.
A lot of times the problem is not the problem. I've heard it's the overthinking and the obsession that we do about that problem. It's really not the problem.
That's
That's
right.
the
And rest,
yeah.
like, man, if I don't have enough sleep, my life is a problem versus an
Mhm.
Jerk face
opportunity to provide us
Milan.
jerk face Milan into town. Or like, man, bang, had too much coffee. Coffee is an anti-serenity serum for me. Like and then now I really actually I've switched to tea entirely. And I managed to not even have a coffee over the holidays. And there was a couple times where I was tired and I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm like right now I'm having fun. I might be tired and having fun, but I think I'm better off continuing tired and having fun. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
I think that's it for me on that one, Mike.
that's good.
All right, can you repeat that question again? I can't
Yeah,
remember how you
absolutely,
worded that.
absolutely. Obviously, now that you've gotten a little farther on into your recovery, you're pretty set and you're a very courageous man. But what are you doing now to take steps in your current life, to make your to cultivate a more courageous mindset? Like, what are you doing today?
So first of all, everything that Milan said, me too. Like absolutely. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I love those two words, me too, have saved my life. Like it took a lot of courage. We all have that one secret that we think we're going to take to the grave. Well, in
Yeah.
reality, through prayer and meditation, it came to me that that was going to be the one thing that took me to the grave. And it took a lot of
Wow.
courage. The most amount of courage I've ever had in my life was to tell another human being that secret. And he was on a screen like this years ago. My sponsor lived out of state, and he said, "Me too," and
Oh,
he shared his experience with me. And listen, when that happened, it was I just it launched like big
yeah.
time.
Wow.
So like, yeah, like all of that stuff. And like where I'm at today, like how I draw on that courage and continue to do courageous things, right? If I want to have good courage, I got to do courageous things, right? If we want good self-esteem, we got to do esteemable things, right? If I want faith, I have to do faithful things, right? If I want to trust, I got to do trusting things. So like I have to be willing do new things, right? Recovery is all about doing new things. The power of choice I'm given through the first step, allows me to make new mistakes, and I can't make new mistakes if I'm staying comfortable in the rut, right? Part of my purpose is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable, right? And that comfortable that I need to disturb is in me sometimes, because when I get comfortable, I get complacent, and that's the enemy of members with substantial clean time, right? And so like I have to do these things, and in doing things different, and like when you asked the question originally and Milan was sharing, I was thinking about how I ended up where I'm sitting right now, right? I'm not originally from Springfield, Missouri, right? I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. We moved to Maryland, and then we moved up to the state of Maine by the time just before I turned 4, and we lived there. You know, that's when like the original pain happened. That's when you know, the question I had to answer of what brought me to the drugs, right? So that's where everything really took off, was in the state of Maine. And I lived there for nearly 40 years. And I was in my active addiction for about 25 of that. And so like I've had to do so much with courage and just be willing to try this. So the biggest thing that I've probably done was you know, I was in a very healthy romantic relationship, and then it's the story that we've heard a million times. I had the girl, I had the house, the car, the bike, like it was beautiful. I used to mow my lawn and cry. I would be in the middle of my mowing my lawn, right, listening to hardcore death metal, right, and all of a sudden I stop and shut my AirPods off and just start bawling my eyes out in
Going, how
gratitude,
the
because
fuck am I here right now?
listen, I was a regional manager of a statewide mental health program. I just helped her start her second mental health agency. She was the woman of my dreams, who my sponsor later on said, maybe next time you'll go for the woman of your prayers, Mike. And right. So
At the
like
pinnacle.
everything, yeah. So like everything's going good. Like I've done a lot of work, and it took a lot of courage to examine Mike's daddy issues, right? To even say that I had them,
Yeah.
and stop blaming women for my romantic relationship problems. I'm the common denominator in all my relationships. Courage, right? And then to share it with somebody, willing to look at it and share it with somebody and change. And so like things are going great. And you know, she comes to me one night and says, well, we need to have a talk. Like things are getting real. We're going to sell this house and buy a new home. We're talking about discussing having a baby. You know, we're zooming in all over the world to find this particular stone for her engagement ring that we're going to have built. We're having blueprints drawn up for the engagement ring. We finally got the stone. Like, so it's getting, you know what I mean? It's like we're making that lifetime commitment. And she came to me, and like I literally worshiped the ground that this woman walked on, and I kind of still do. She's like still my best friend. It's pretty neat. But like she says, there's one thing missing in my life, and she shared with me, um, and it went against every fiber of my being. It went against everything that I believe in, my morals and beliefs I've developed over the years. And true courage, the truest act of courage, started then. And it was standing up for myself to the person I love the most, right? Not trying to manipulate myself or her. Like I got goosebumps talking about this. This is a
Me
real,
too, man.
profound thing.
Yeah.
And like we were best friends for a long time before we ever
Yeah.
got together. I'd never done that before. And so courage was sitting down with her the next 2 nights later. You know, I didn't jump to conclusions. I processed with a
Prayed on it.
therapist, my sponsor, God, you know, the fellowship, right? And she came home, and we had the conversation, and I said, you know, you told me there's only one piece of your smile missing, and this is the closest you've ever been to it. And that means the world that I've been the man that was able to experience that with you. And it means the world to me that I was the man you were able to come with and feel safe enough knowing what's about to happen because you already told me you were afraid of it, and knowing that like I'm not gonna physically hurt you like other people have. And I said, so I can't compromise my belief system, but I'm not willing you to ask you to compromise your smile being its fullest because I love you that much. So I would like to sacrifice our romantic relationship to save hopefully a platonic one with my best friend. We laid there for 4 days. We held each other. We cried. We laughed. I packed my things over the weekend and I left. And I then decided I think I need to do something different, right? Courage, not reaching out and hurting her, right? Courage, leaving, not knowing what was going to happen. Courage was being at that time 6, 7 years into a career where I had a prestigious position in the community. You know what I mean? Like City Hall called me and asked me what to do, right? Like doing a lot of big things. And well, I put my notice in before I even had a job. And then
Ooh,
I drove
courage.
1,600
Come on.
six, sold everything I had except for my artwork, my motorcycle, and my car, and the clothes on my back.
Your
And
therapy.
I got, yeah, and I got in my car and I drove 1,657 miles across the country, secure in the love of the fellowship. And my friend said, just come here. You don't need anything. Just stay with me, and we'll get you going. And you know, recovery is about new beginnings, courage. And I've been here for just over a year now. November 29th was a year. I'm flourishing in my recovery. I'm flourishing in my job. I'm flourishing in my relationships. My relationship with her is great. Like, yes, I have an LLC up there, and like she's messaging me all frantic. She's like, they're gonna start taxing you $500 a day if you don't fill this out. And I know you don't know about it because you don't pay attention to this shit, right? And she's helping me, man. Like help, like we're
Beautiful,
still
man.
very close friends. Courage,
Mm.
right? To not manipulate, courage to just act on faith and have trust in that faith.
And
So,
no spiritual manipulation, no none of that, right? You just you let her be where she needed to be, right? That's beautiful, Mike. That's beautiful.
and for the first time in my life, some people said, you know, everywhere you go, there you are, Mike. You're the first person you're going to meet when you get out there. I said, you know what? You know what? I'm okay with that because Mike's a pretty cool guy.
No doubt. And we talked about this because it says in the literature somewhere, we hit on this on just one of the last couple of podcasts, Mikey, that it does say in the literature that it does give the addict a chance if they do make that change of geographic to just take advantage of other people there. But if as long as
Mm,
you're working that, you know, you're being progressive in your recovery, right? It's going to be a good thing usually, right? And then you talk about having leaving family members, and then we hit on like, well, what if those family members are the enablers, right? You got to get away
mm,
from that. You got to draw
yeah,
those boundaries, right?
yeah.
Do what's right for you.
So, what about you with that question, Andrew?
Yeah. So, yeah, I obviously my whole goal when I get hit with fear, right? Because you know, addiction, there's a lot of fear wrapped up in that, right? Addiction is the fear of pain. We talked about that the other day, close quote, like whatever pain that is. And so my whole mindset is try to be a little more to kind of answer that fear with faith, right? If I can answer the door when fear knocks with faith, if I can be faithful in my endeavors, right, and faithful to the program, then fear is not going to really take over. Like you know, and I got to train myself to be stronger than my emotions too, right? My emotions will get the best of me and shut me down quick, right? And I can get wrapped up in my own head in that neighborhood that I don't know anything about, with no way to defend myself and no way out, right? And I don't want to get caught in that thing, right? And so my what I'm trying to do and try to take steps to do is to try to feel that fear, right? And know that it's going to be there, know that and accept that fear will be present at that time, and not use any excuse to avoid that situation. So that's what I'm trying to actively do, right? I heard a good acronym for fear. What is it? You can either fuck everything and run, or face everything and recover, right? You got to pick one. You got to pick one. We can't half-ass this thing. And so once I was finally able, in any situation, to be able to get rid of my excuses about that situation, I could embrace the solution part of that, right? I'm able to embrace the positive side of that, and then I'm able to be more courageous throughout that endeavor, whatever it is, right? If I can apply that to each and everything that I come up against, because I don't want to shut down when those fearful things hit my plate, right? I fully understand that my brain will keep track of that shit, man. My brain keeps track of everything. So when I'm shutting down, whether it's just the little mental shutdowns where I don't make that phone call when I'm supposed to, or if I don't have that conversation, I get weaker every time I shut down, right? And it gets easier to give in to that fear and not be courageous, and to make that courageous act, even if it's just something small. It's something small, some small courageous act that is on your mind. Like push through it. You feel better on the other side of it, and it gets a little easier every time. Your mind keeps track of every time you push through them too, right? On the other side of that, our brains are incredible things that do get better, right? I didn't know when I came into this program that fog went away. I was walking around in a painting. I don't know if y'all have you ever felt that way, Mikey, where when you were in active addiction, I felt like I was in public, but I'm in a
Yeah.
lethargic painting where I don't know if I'm even breathing the same air that these people are. And Milan and I have talked
I
about it.
didn't want to be.
Didn't want to
I
be,
wanted to be somewhere
but where
else.
else could we go? Like, where
Exactly.
is there another universe to tap into? Because let me be there
Hmm.
if I can feel a little more comfortable in my own skin. It's
Yeah.
just like this radiation off of it, like everything is around, is looking at us or thinking about us, or it's a fucked up place to be, man. And so I'm trying to, if I can remain in that faith lane, taking that step without seeing the whole staircase, right?
Mm.
Remaining faithful in my endeavors, and knowing that fear is going to be there, and try to have the know the precursors to it, know how my body's going to react when I do it, and get a little bit more, it gets a little easier to push through those times, right? And then I can push through tougher times next time. And if I make a mistake doing it, Mikey, that's I can't get down on myself if I don't get through it, because it just shows I'm trying, right? It shows I'm
That's
trying.
right.
And that I have some kind of compassion for and self-love for myself, to be able to try to continue to push through that thing. And you hit on something in your intro, Mikey, being terminally unique. We suffer from
Hmm.
terminally uniqueness, right? Like, there's no way that this is for me, and don't put that label on me. It ain't me. Well, it's
Nobody will understand what I
nobody
went
will
through.
understand exactly what I have felt. And so we come in here, right, and we get hope, hearing other
Mm.
people's experiences, helping other people every day, escaping hell on planet Earth, all the shit you want to say, but we get hope in here, right? We get hope and love, because that's the only two spiritual principles that we can actually
Mm.
give to each other. And so I that's where I stay. I stay hopeful, faithful. You talked about feeling empathy, right? The empathy versus sympathy piece. I'm not just sitting around
Mm.
feeling sympathetic for people because of what they are. I'm putting myself in their shoes,
Mm.
and I'm feeling their pain, right? When we come on here and share honestly with each other. You are the first one that I've never talked to about that fact, that you say that all the time. When I hear somebody come on and share honestly, when our hearts connect immediately.
Hmm.
I'm not even hearing the words that are coming out of your mouth. I'm feeling your energy and the way you say it, and I know you're
Mm.
being honest with me. And that's my real medicine, man. That's the real dope that I look for, man. And because they do say, in our literature somewhere, that honest sharing is one of the highest forms of prayer in our fellowship. And this goes on another thing you taught me, Mikey. You said something about one of the most intimate things that we can do for ourselves is to pray, right? So what is one of the most intimate things that we can do for somebody else? Pray for them. And since you said that, I have not been able to get that out of my head. And so
Mm.
I talk about that in meetings. I talk about it constantly. And so I want to thank you for that, because it's a different flip of, like I am doing one of the most loving, intimate acts for you without you even knowing it. And you talk about goodwill, talk about like the
Mm.
feeling that you get when like something nice happens for that person. Uh, it's incredible. It is incredible, man. So when I can answer when fear comes knocking, right? If I can answer that door with faith, I know I'm going to be okay. Right. So that's kind of like the main step I'm working on today, because, once I'm able to kind of get rid of all those excuses, we can all make an excuse for anything. Why we're just not going to do anything. Then I can't fully embrace my solutions until I get rid of that excuse about that situation specifically. So, yeah, that was my answer.
Mikey, you got a question you want to ask Andrew, and then I'll answer it too, and then you'll answer it.
Sure. So we talk about staying clean in the face of adversity. What is the most difficult situation that you have been faced with since you have been clean that took the most courage to stay clean through? Where where you knew the only answer was to use. The only thing outside of you that would make you feel better was to use, but you didn't.
Wow. I'm just thinking about a few situations here, man. A lot of those happened, real early on in my recovery. I had a lot of those times where I wanted to just go out and use, because I wasn't fully surrendered to the fact that I was an addict. I was not fully surrendered to the fact that I was an addict. And so, I didn't know that if I could take on this way of life, that and long term, I didn't have any addict parents or anything like that were in a 12-step program. So I was never at all, I had no clue about the fellowship. And so when I got out, wow, when I first got out, I was on maintenance medication, right? I was on a little bit of maintenance medication, and so getting off of that maintenance medication was tough. That was a real tough thing, because, and I'll just put it out there. I was on Suboxone, right? I was on a Suboxone taper off to get off, to be able to, because I was into, opiates, things like that, heavy. And as I came off of that, because what happens with that stuff is you don't get high. You don't get high when you use that stuff. When you use it properly, it helps. It's saving lives, and it saved my life. But there was a really hairy, I'm talking about the most hairy situation in there, because I was on some sleep medication too, some pretty heavy sleep medication, which had some antipsychotic that wear it on you the next day, right? uh, and so that helped, like, with my eating habits and things like that. And I didn't really fully realize the residuals of that until it was just a pain in the ass to be in the doctor. And I knew I wanted to be off of that shit eventually. I'm not going to be on these things for forever. And as I kind of got rid of the Suboxone, and then I came off of that sleeping medication, there were times where I wasn't in my right headspace, and the only thing that I thought about doing was using, because I felt like I didn't have the mental space, because I wasn't in a treatment facility, so I didn't have somebody going, "Hey, you're coming down from this, and this is how you're going to feel, and you're in a controlled environment, so, like, you can leave if you want to, but the doors are locked." I could go run out. I'm living in the place that I grew up, where I did all the drugs, and I can go get any drug I want right now, which is my superpower today. I'm okay with that, right? It's my superpower today. But there were times when I got off Suboxone that I wanted to use bad, man. I wanted to use bad, because Suboxone, let's just call it maintenance medication. This one specifically, when you do my DOC, it activates something in that pain receptor, right? That makes me feel better, right? It makes me feel relief. This maintenance medication, it does not get you high. It wraps itself around those pain receptors, right? As I did research on it, and it numbs those things. So how are you going to come off of something that's keeping you alive but not getting you high? Like, where's the step down from that? Or where's I just didn't understand it. And it played tricks on me. So that was a really tricky time where I had to really, man, I was sleeping in meetings. I would hit the 24-hour meeting, and I would sleep in that bitch for a week. I'd be in there for a week straight, just having it in the background. And it was like my NA real-time radio slash keep me sane, because there were people on there that were struggling hard. If you ever been on there for an extended period of time, you see people that they get on and just whimper for 5 minutes. And there was a couple addicts that would actually come on there and sleep with me in those meetings. And I really leaned into this fellowship, man, because all I wanted to do was use, and I didn't even tell anybody I wanted to use. I just knew I was whacked out. I was just out of my mind, and not in a good spot. But I knew just picking up one time would be like taking a loaded gun to my head, man. I had put too much effort in the people around me, in the service commitments that I've taken, in my peers in this program, and y'all have put too much effort in me for me to let y'all down, right? So I gotta get I gotta do whatever I can. It's real hard to use drugs in a meeting, Mikey. It's real hard to use drugs in a meeting. They got meetings that have gone for 5 years straight. If you need to stay clean, look, go to that meeting and don't leave. They talk about like just come back. No, don't leave. Just stay in that meeting until you don't want to use drugs anymore, or that you want to be in that meeting. You laugh. It's something that can be done, right? It's very, very hard to be listening to a message and pulling back a DOC and come. It's very hard, especially in person, but in on online it's different. It's just it's not something that happens, right? You're not going to be on a meeting using drugs. So get into a meeting, if nothing else, man. Get into some fellowship. If you have a sponsor that you love and you trust, man, call that sponsor. And so that's where, that was like the trickiest spot, was when I was transitioning on. And now I'm not on any sleep medication. I no longer have to go to the doctor for anything but a physical. And my meetings are my medicine and my drug today. I don't need drugs anymore today, Mikey. I need meetings. And so I get up and I get that uneasy feeling, and I almost forget that I'm in active recovery. I almost think I'm a drug addict again, because I get those uneasy feelings. And then I reach for not drugs anymore, man. I reach for my tablet, or I reach for my phone, and I just get it in my head. They start reading the readings and I feel better, man. And I can do this anywhere in the world for $0, man. That's the amazing thing about this thing, is I can go anywhere in the world and stay clean and get prayed in, prayed out, get some love, and not for $1, man. They're not asking for any money at the door. Where am I going to go? It's the last house on the block, and it fucking works. The most important thing about it is it works. So, Milano.
So I feel like I could have some big, long, drawn out story and be a people pleaser. But the truth is
What are you saying? What are you saying?
What I'm saying is, okay, like Mike doesn't know my story. On the 30th of September last year, like 2023, pretty much died. Came out of the hospital from that and haven't used since. So, like, my clean date's October 1st. And I, death was the scariest, fucking, darkest, coldest fucking place on earth for me. I was conscious going to death. And there was no heaven. There was nobody. Here's a harp playing God's band, Milan. You'll do great. Here's the chords, you know. And so I've never even actually had a compulsion. The thing I would say that I do though is I keep myself in the middle of the street. I went into a treatment center and I did every fucking thing they said. I did it as hard as I could because I just wanted some joy in sobriety. And I've had 3 using dreams that were like enough to make me almost in tears for the rest of the day, because I thought I had done something stupid, and I was like, how could I? Like, how? Because in my dreams, it was like I never had the experience of using, but I had the experience of having the drug and having the disappointment, and then trying to hide that drug from the people in my life. But I never actually got the usage moment, but I knew that I had used, which was a really weird thing psychologically, which just showed me that, like, the lying really had occupied a whole lot of my fucking brain in my using. I came home from the treatment center, and when I went to the hospital that night, I was at a conference in Vancouver, like 4.5 hours from my place. And while I was getting out of the hospital and on my way back, my wife was flying in to drive my vehicle home. Best ride ever, not. And my friends packed my bags. Well, inside one of the bags was one of the vessels full of drugs. I came out of treatment. I went to go to do something for work, and it had been put in my computer bag. And so this was probably like, I think it was early December. I came out, I was like, found it. So, like, almost a month after coming out of treatment center, saw this vessel. I opened it up. I was like, whoa, holy shit. Like, this vessel's full. And I'm like, okay, this is trouble. I didn't even want to use it, but I wanted to sell it because I was so fucking broke. But I had never actually sold that drug ever. Like, it was one thing that I had a hard and fast rule about my life was nobody's coming knocking at my fucking door at 4 a.m. like I go knock at theirs. Like I was not going I was not gonna be the
Do as I
house.
say, not as I do. Come on.
Like, but that was the truth. Like, that was exactly it. And so I had a friend who wanted it, but then it was like somewhere in the back of my mind, like I think back to this now, there was like a 2 week period where I waited for him to come and get it because I didn't want to go to his house. Like, I knew going to his house was like a reservation or some shit like that. And
I can see you doing this, Milan. I can watch.
no, and then so for like 2 weeks I waited, but he works a lot and he wasn't around, and so then I ended up just fucking throwing it in the garbage because I'm like, this is just like, first of all, I'm like, why do I want to sell drugs when I don't even believe in doing them anymore? Like, and why do I want to start selling drugs when I never sold this drug ever in my whole life? Like,
Yeah.
none. I've never sold any. And then it was like this weird thing. So, I mean, and like I think it might have even been Andrew, but he said, he's like, I keep in the middle of the road because I don't want to be too close to the edge. And I've heard other people say that too. But for me, it's like what we learned in the treatment center was the things that cause you to prelapse, like those emotional things where you're on your way to the fuck it zone, because fuck it to me is like, see you later, I'm probably going to die. And so I really took a good, strong look at that stuff in my treatment center. And now, like even days like yesterday, it's like, I'm like, I am out of whack. Like, I had to stop and I'm like, okay, first of all, been eating shitty food since Christmas and haven't had a good rest in 3 days. I'm off my center.
You're spotting your precursors, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, and so yesterday I didn't have much going on, and I'm like, I canceled the podcast I had with a girl. I'm like, I'm in a bad frame of mind. And I literally just slept as much as I could in the afternoon to catch up and get myself back on the center. So yeah, I don't have any tale of adventure of being in the lion's den because I won't go there. Like people who are like, hey, come on, man, it's get over here. And I'm like, I'm straight. Partying's not a spectator sport to me. I'm
God
like,
put a lion's
I'm
den in
like,
your back
you want to
seat,
come
though.
to a meeting with me? I'm like, well, I'll fucking take you to a meeting. You want to go over some steps? I'm like, come on, man, let's do some step work. You want to walk dogs? I'm like specializing in walking dogs, recording music, podcasts, meetings, step work, and service. Let's do it.
Yeah. Anything outside of that,
Perfect.
no time. No time.
That's right. I'm just not in. I don't find that fun right now. Like when I say I got recovery fever, it's because I'm burning up with it and I'm enjoying it. And that's what I want to do because it leaves me feeling good.
Yep.
And I bet
Absolutely.
you got a good story, Mike.
Hmm.
A man with a question like that has a good lion's den.
Yeah. So, all right. What was it? Coming up on 5 years, right? We all know what happened 5 years ago, right? It's what brought us together on this. I don't know what happened with you guys.
COVID thing.
I know what happened with a lot of people with a lot of time in recovery, a lot more than me, when they said you can't meet in person anymore. Um, I watched people die, go insane, and go back to using. Um, my recovery flourished. Unity took on a whole new meaning to me, right? I believe recovery is all about connection, right? And my personal recovery depends on unity, right? So connection begins with unit. Recovery begins with connection. Connection begins with unity, and the first three letters of unity.
You and
And
I.
that's right.
Boom.
And because of the virtual platform, the you and I spread. One of my dearest friends is over in Aberdeen, Scotland, and like him and I have laughed together, screamed at each other, with each other, and cried together through relationships, death, like everything, right? So for that to happen, though, I was put into a position to change or die. Is what it came down to. And so the pandemic was just kicking off. We were just told no more meeting in person. And a string of events began, and I can only compare the pain that I have in my heart 4 years later to that of the original pain that brought me to the drugs. We got a phone call. My mom was in the hospital dying. My entire family walked away. Like you said, I'm the only one in the family. I'm the only one, right? They all walked away because she became too much of a burden. And I thought it was funny because I'm like, I already did my amends with mom like years ago, right? Well, God said, no, now you're going to go do it. And so like I'm going through this. That was intense. But the most beautiful thing, right? So she's at the end of her life. And 2020 to 2021, I lost 5 sponsees that died.
Oh my
Um,
God.
my mom died. Multiple friends died. Like
COVID or
from,
overdose? Just a little bit of, I mean,
I didn't have anybody close to me up there die from COVID. I did have a very good dear friend that lived right here that said he was sick, and a man that he used to sponsor that I actually sponsor now, D Green. He was such a beautiful human being. They called him the gentle giant out here, real big guy, soft spoken, just a just
yeah,
pure
yeah.
love. And like so he was the closest person that I lost to COVID.
But
But
you're talking about they were dropping like flies because they had
so
nowhere to go.
it started out
Wow.
my buddy he had relapsed, and he had got out of prison. He just celebrated a year, and he was moving down to the town I was living in, and he was moving in to the Oxford House, and a bunch of other guys lived there that we were close with. And so Matt's moving down, and a man I used to sponsor had just sold his motorcycle to him. So he comes down and he pulls in on his bike. This kid Dylan was coming up on a year. Dylan just had this huge transformation happened with him on the inside. He had just completed the 12 steps for the first time.
Wow.
And Matt pulls in. Dylan heard the bike. He comes running out. Matt's like, let's go. And Dylan hops on his bike and they take off, and they don't make a mile down the road. A car pulls out. They both hit the car. They both die. And that kicked off the pandemic. And these were two gentlemen that were very loved by so many people, like crippled the recovery community up there. And I remember we're not supposed to be together, and there's like 50 of us in the parking lot of that Oxford House, right? And so like that starts, right? And we're focusing on people, and I've got my sponsee Dano with me, and like we're leaving. We had gone down and seen the crash site, and we were leaving. We left the Oxford House, and as we're driving down, it's 2 lanes on either side of this main road that goes down through the town. And I look up, and Dano's in the passenger seat of my car, and like we're both just shook, right? And the tow truck pulls up, and Matt's bike was hanging off the back of it. Dylan's bike was in the one behind us with the trailer, and Dano just started shaking. And like I just started hammering on it when the green light happened. Every time before we get to a light, it would turn red, and that freaking tow truck would pull up next to us. And I just said screw it, and I ran through a red light. I was like, with this we can't do it. Like he was losing his mind looking at that motorcycle our best friend just died on, minutes
My
before that.
God.
So yeah, right. Courage was in that situation was showing up for each other, showing up, not using like let's hold each other up here, like let's love on one another, let's hurt together, let's cry together, let's scream together. Courage is facing our emotions, right?
Alone, you'd have been fucked. If you were alone in that situation, you would have been fucked
So
completely.
little did I know this was just the beginning. Um, Another guy that was well known in the community, period. He had a pretty heavy duty reputation, had gone through a treatment center I used to work in. had asked me to sponsor him, and he decided to do some research. And not too long after he got back into research, he left behind his wife and their young child. And there's no funerals. We're not having funerals, right? So how are we getting closure?
That's the worst.
So it started, Dougie gets in a car accident that had alcohol involved in it, and he dies, right? Bill has a heart attack and dies. Like all these people just start dropping, right? And then like my mom's in the hospital, and I'm fighting and fighting and fighting, just trying to get her into assisted living or something for the end of life services, and she's fighting it, and like I'm watching her deteriorate physically and mentally and spiritually. She started coming alive spiritually, right? She started accepting God, and I share about it, like watching her live the 12 steps that she didn't even know anything about other than watching us live the 12 steps. Like I watched her come to believe. I helped her. She started asking questions and inventorying what the problems were with her daughters, and her part in it, and what she could do about it, wanting to make an amends, and like all of this stuff. And I tell everybody now, my mom is living the ultimate 11th step. She cannot improve on her relationship with God any more than it is right now, right? And
That's
and
so
her
happy.
her 12th step is me going into meetings, because when she was dying, she said, you go into those meetings and you tell them that I said thank you for giving me my son back,
Oh my
right?
God.
And like, so that's her 12th step, right? But it's amazing that the message we carry sometimes isn't even to people that are addicts,
No
you
doubt.
know?
And it's not
And
about what we do, it's about what happens to the people around us, Mikey, when we do
yeah,
what we do. Right?
yeah.
We never know how far our reach goes.
So all of this is going on. I was going through a period of abstinence with romantic relationships, really working on some issues that I was never willing to address. Um, so like I'm doing things that are all new, you know what I mean? I'm not using women for relief anymore, and all of this stuff. And Dano is like right in my back pocket. I had sponsored him for a while, right? And him and another sponsee celebrated together. And Kyle was celebrating a year, and Dano was celebrating 2 years, and we did it on the Zoom platform. And 10 days later, Dano relapses. And I jumped in his back pocket. When he called, I answered. It didn't matter what I was doing. Um, I would go pick him up from hotels. I would see him walking, and I would take him to work when he was trying to keep his job. 90 something percent of the time, it was never Dano I was talking with. It was the disease of addiction. But I still loved on him, right? And like he saved my life when some stuff had gone down, and like started doing tattoos on me. I used to have some really heinous tattoos for a life that I used to live, and like he was covering them all up, and I never did it because like why change the outside if I'm still trash on the inside? So I changed from the inside out first, right? So he did that. So like there's a lot of sentimental stuff on my body from him. And so like I'm at work one day, and I leave early. I get out early, and I really wish we could pick the what's and no matter what. I got out of the car and I went into Walmart, and I left my phone in the car. And I came out and I had two missed calls from Dano's sister. See, sponsorship goes much deeper than the sponsee, and the family gets involved sometimes too after you do this for a while. And his sister had called me, and I had two missed calls and a voicemail from her, and she had never left me a voicemail, and she had never called me back to back. And I knew why she was calling. And I called her up, and she said they had found his body. And that morning I got ready for work, and I picked up my phone and I went on social media to check my notifications, and there was this video playing, a live feed playing, and it was of Dano. And I turned my volume up, and I couldn't make out what he was saying, but he was quoting song lyrics, and it was kind of dark and couldn't tell what he was doing. But something happened, and I put my phone down. I went to my office and I got ready for the day, and I picked my phone up and I open up social media, and that's the first thing that pops up again is this video. and my office phone rings, and your first client's here. I had to put my phone down, and I didn't know that God wasn't allowing me to see what was on there. The disease had gotten the best of him, and he went live on social media and committed suicide. And the maintenance and in his storage unit, and the maintenance man found him. And when the original pain happened, man, like I share about the original pain, sometimes I don't get emotional about it. Right? Something was taken from me when I was a child. And like when she told me that something was taken from me again. Our first step says that like there's a void inside of us that begs to be filled. And it says working the rest of these steps will fill that void. And I feel like that void's never even had a speck put back into it, man. In recovery, we hear recovery is a program of action. And I remember my sponsor at the time saying, because I'm like, there's no worse pain than a broken heart. Well, what the hell do you do when your heart's literally pulled out of you? And he said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to put your hands on your ass cheeks and you're going to sit down and you're not going to do a goddamn thing. The truest act of courage I ever did was to sit down and feel every ounce of that pain. I had an ex-girlfriend from active addiction that I was like bonkers over, like still even years into this, right? Call me up and say, I'll come over, I'll do whatever you want. I just want you to feel better. And she's giggling, hinting, and I'm like, please don't come over.
Yeah.
A week later, right? We can't find my sponsor. We finally get a hold of him. He relapsed. I had just written the most intense fourth step of my life, and I had nobody to share it with.
Perfect.
The one person I wanted to hug, hold, and cry on their shoulder wouldn't even talk to me. Courage was not using dope. When I rounded the corner to go to my office 2 days later to get some paperwork taken care of, and his sister lived right across the street from my office, where he committed suicide was over here on the other side, and I'm in the middle of all three, and I turned that corner and the thought went through my head, this pain is why people with substantial clean time relapse, because heroin's the only thing that's going to make me feel better. I wanted to use the one thing that just caused one of the men I've loved more than anybody, to end his own life and created this pain. That's what I want to run to, right? And I didn't. Courage was not using. Courage was sticking to my commitment to not use women. Courage was sticking to my commitment to not. When I had 3 years clean, I almost ate myself to death. We're taught to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, and I was in pain when I had 3 years clean, and I chose to use food instead of heroin. And we're supposed to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. I put on over 90 pounds in 90 days and was in a hospital and almost died from diabetes, right? And to not do that, and to just sit down and do nothing at all.
Most courageous act you could have done, by far.
And yeah, that was true courage. And to show up at a meeting and say, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. To sit in a room, whether it was virtual or not, in front of sometimes hundreds, and bawl my fucking eyes out and say, help me. And I don't know how you can help me. And I don't think you can help me. And I don't fucking know what I'm doing. And bawl my eyes out like a man, not like a bitch. I don't cry like a baby. I don't cry like a bitch. I cry like a man today. Huh? Courage. And courage to have faith that this will heal and this will get better. And I'm still in pain. Next week will be 4 years since this happened. His birthday's a week after that. his son's birthday was yesterday, and I was video chatting with him, right? And staying in position. Courage is staying in position, staying in that street and not swerving into other people's lanes to go back to the guy that I used to be, hating on people and blaming my problems on people. Courage is not coming in here and talking about it. It's when I'm off this camera, nobody is here. What am I doing then when no one's looking?
And the courage to be vulnerable, right, Mikey? It's to be vulnerable, like you just talked about, the courage it takes to be vulnerable and to go on there and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. I need help. That right there brings up a feeling in my stomach that makes me want to puke. It makes me want to throw up. It's the ultimate vulnerability and being able to do that. And that's the ultimate courage to me too, as well, man. That's a whole nother layer to it.
Also, though, the honesty of having the courage to honestly tell yourself that that's not your solution anymore. You know, you know, it's not going to make it better. You know, like we proved that in our addiction, right? And you know, to be able to maintain that truth, because it is the truth. You know, like it doesn't solve our problems to go dive in back into our addiction.
Yeah. Our best thinking got us here. Our best critical thinking process got us here. Right. But like we've talked about this before, Mikey. This is the only disease that can have us convinced that we don't have it. You know, we're not stupid people. We're not fucking stupid people here. You know, so we have to give ourselves a break, right? And you know, this thing has had us wrapped up for so long that we don't know how to do anything else, right? Like an addict not using it is in an abnormal state, right? And so I know that I have to work harder at my recovery than I did in my active addiction. That was taking the easy way out. I can't take the easy way out. And I know that this disease knows way more about the step work than I do. It knows way more about the literature than I do. It damn near wrote the book. All of them.
There's so many more facets to recovery
So many.
than addiction, in the sense that, I mean, if you guys were, you know, anywhere near as deep as I figure you were, we all were hustlers of some sort. Like hustlers always get what they want, right? And but in recovery, right? Like we have work to do to change, you know, and that work, you know, it's nutritional, it's physical, it's rest, it's mind, it's studying, it's service, it's, you know, like there's so many facets to it. And you know, like I remember my first friend who relapsed, and from the treatment center that I was in, and I was like heartbroken. And the very first thing I did that day was like, where's the holes in my program right now? Like where am I anywhere near an edge? And you know, I I try to use those opportunities to look at the entirety of my program, and you know, stuff, you know, like recently it's been meditation coming into my life recently, because I'm like, you know what, I'm not doing that. And then I started doing it, and I'm like, why the fuck am I not doing this? Like, and so even we've been getting together with people and doing like a meditation before the podcast,
We'll
right
do that
before we
next
start.
podcast when we have it.
It's actually kind of cool because it cleanses off the day,
Yeah.
you know, and then we all kind of
Absolutely.
enter in a little glow ourselves. Man, Mikey K, that was probably one of the most heartfelt stories yet on this podcast. And you know,
Thank you.
it's not
I love
about
you.
accolades, but I want to say that you showed tremendous courage in that moment.
Big time.
And
Big time.
like, you
Thank you.
know, like the potential of using wrapped in a titty shaped form, it's like almost impossible for a man to consider denying. And like,
Yeah.
you know, like it shows your commitment to the program.
Yeah. And it
So
shows that it brings home real quick the point that like we have a progressive disease, Mikey, but we can be progressive in our recovery too.
That's
So
right.
we got to
That's
remain
right.
in that lane. So
That's right.
so how does sharing the message to everybody, take courage for you these days. Mike, we'll go to you, and then on Andrew, and then me.
So I'm gonna say that, like, for that to really take off, I had to learn the difference between being honest and telling the truth. Because I can be around anybody and I can be honest about everything with a smile on my face and not tell you an ounce of what the absolute truth is. And like, how, because I'm embarrassed. I shouldn't be acting like this with this much clean time or whatever it is. So it's yeah, and I thought of that as soon as you started this thing out with that honesty piece. That's absolutely true, man. We got to be willing and honest. And that does take a lot of courage. Otherwise, we can't. A true message rings through to the newcomer. You know what I mean? An honest, true message is what we have to do, or this won't work. You guys tell me the truth. That's how I stay. I need to tell you the truth so I can get better.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
Question. You say the question one more time, Milan?
Sure. How does sharing the message take courage for you, Andrew?
Yeah. Honesty came to my mind too, Mike. Because our sponsor will say that the truth is a holler, even at a whisper, right?
Mm,
We come in here, and if we're sharing just what we've heard other people share, we can sniff bullshit from a mile away, right? And it's not that
mhm.
there's not a place for that, because it allows us to recognize where we're getting that real share from, or where we're getting that medicine from. And so yeah, carrying that message, you got to be truthful, you got to be honest, you got to be compassionate, right? We're not out here sharing at anybody or for anybody else other than us, right? So when we come out sharing it, and it's not on us to carry a message that everybody hears. We don't need, we're not coming into this thing going, hey, we have to share perfectly so the whole room loves us. It's about sharing honestly, right? And it allows our hearts to connect, Mikey. We feel that compassion. um and then when I'm doing that, I know I'm staying in the right lane, right? I know I'm connecting with people and vice versa. So I gotta stay honest. I gotta tell people my story, because I know someone will be able to relate with my story. Um, but then on top of that, staying in, service. I'll stay in for like parking lot meetings. We're doing this podcast. We're doing a lot of extra things to really get this thing out there. And it's, it takes a lot of courage to come on here and be honest, and to be vulnerable, right? And to come on here and share tears in front of anybody who's listening, right? That in the hopes that maybe, well, A, it's getting us better. This is therapy for all of us right here. And B, that it might help somebody else down the road, right? And I hit it again. We never know how far our reach goes. I used to sit in early active addiction, and I would listen to podcasts and speaker tapes, because I didn't know how to relate to the program. I didn't know how to relate to the program. I would come to meetings, I'd hear the readings, and I just didn't. There wasn't a connection yet still. But when I came on the podcast and I had someone would break down their identification to the 12 steps, and it would give me some kind of tangible evidence that this thing is doable for me. And so the whole sharing my message and sharing my hope, I've learned to turn my mess into a message, right? We do want to be honest with that too, but there's a way to do it that is that initial attraction rather than promotion, rather than just coming on and using our sponsors as garbage cans, and using the rooms as garbage cans. And you walk, there's two type of people that walk into a room. Like, there's one that walks in and goes, hey, look at me, guys, like, I'm here. And then there's the one that walks into a room or a meeting and looks to be of service and makes eye contact with other people, and they in turn know that that's the person that is there to be of service to them, right? It's a different way to live. I have like a doorway trigger where it's called, like, when I walk into a doorway, I try to kind of shut everything out that before I walked into that doorway, and then I look to be of service to the room. It's not about me like, hey, can I tie your shoes for you? But it's of looking to be of service to other people, which allows me to get out of my head, allows me to be in goodwill, allows me to be more in contact with my God, right? Because I know that I'm living in his lane. And we talk about conscious contact a lot too, man. So if I'm maintaining conscious contact with him and living in his will, like I said, even though I'm making mistakes sometimes, at least I'm trying and I'm staying in his goodwill. And I know that if something doesn't happen for me, it's because he doesn't have it in his plan for me. And I know there's something on the other side that is for me, right? I have a disease that tells me that what is it? Progressive, incurable, and fatal if not arrested, right? And we will die if we do not actively seek another way of life. And so that's where I kind of try to stay in that with my message and trying to share that hope. And I hope that answers your question.
I think it totally did. That was awesome. Man, I love you guys. Like, I was just thinking how much I love both of you. For me, my addiction was like the worst kept secret I never talked about. Like, I look back at photos and I'm like, who the fuck do you think you're fooling? Like, I look at like little snippets of videos and memories and stuff. Facebook's a good like don't go back reminder. Like that's
The
what you look like.
memories, the
But
memory
but
spot.
so I really I came out of the treatment center and into the program, proud as fuck of the change that was I was discovering, and also just no longer ashamed of who I was, and man, I had a lot of years of shame hiding it in fantasies of like boastfulness, and this has saved my life. Like, this is the only time that I've been straight in 39 years now where I'm actually happy and straight. And so, one of the things for me is that I've been given really like a lot of joy in my serenity in this program, and I don't let other people shit shame me about it. Like I want to show a newcomer that eventually when you start having endorphins again, that you'll actually smile and joke. Like I remember going into a meeting, it's all these people laughing, and I was like, fuck, like I'm like, I remember that. Like I remembered that from my youth. And and I think it takes courage to not try to bottle up the joy as well as the other emotions. Like there's so many times where it's like misery loves company. And I feel so much pressure not to be as fucking happy. Like and I'm not saying that those people should fake orgasms of joy. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying jump on my magic carpet for a little bit and I can
Try it
carry the
out.
both of us.
Yeah, come on.
Like I can carry the both of us right now because I've got that to give. And if anything, I really feel that I would not have believed people about the life inside recovery without having experienced it. And part of
Mm.
it has been like a misguidance and misrepresentation in all the media. Like we were talking about this quite recently, even with Kyle and that. Like everything shows a bunch of sad addicts sitting in a circle. And that's
No
just
happy,
not my
no happy
experience.
addicts.
That's just not my
Exactly.
experience. And
That's
so,
right.
like I have my name on this podcast. And guess what, world? The cat's out of the fucking bag. Like the thing I want to do is help other people stay alive and learn how to be happy using these fucking
Mm.
tools. Like that's all I want. And and is like nobody told me. Nobody told me what it could be like, and nobody showed me a shining example of it. Like I
Right.
said, I didn't know a sober person until I was in my late 30s. I grew up in southern Ontario, factory land. It was like alcohol and drugs. And that was like it was just like whether you did both or not, you were for sure a drinker and you could put drugs on top of it too. You
And
know,
Milan put a spin on this, Mikey, that I think you'll like when he said when he grew up, that all he saw was this negative, negative, negative about drugs. And the first time he tried drugs, he goes, everything y'all were telling me about this shit is a lie. You didn't tell me that I was gonna love the Beatles and eat all the Doritos off the rack and all that stuff.
Yeah.
At least if you would have came in and said, "Look, when you try this thing, it's gonna be great, but then your life is going to go downhill."
But they just said
You
it's
would at least,
bad. I was like, this ain't
but you
bad.
go, "Hey, what else are you lying about now? Right? What
Mhm.
else are we lying in your Dare
I
program?
thought
Like
every
what are
commercial
we
teacher
doing?"
and parent was a liar at that point. I was just like,
Correct.
okay, I'm not believing nothing you're
And
saying.
as a kid, you're gonna go right for that. Let's go try that again. Let's go
Yeah,
try
I'm
that
like,
again.
what else is bad
Prove them
that you're
wrong.
lying
Prove
about?
them adults wrong, right?
Yeah.
Fucked up.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I think that kind of that answers my version of that. Andrew, you got one more question, and we'll do another round.
Yes, I do. I've got it written right here. Yep, on this page right here before. So, how can you push? Well, I guess we'll start with you, Mikey. How can you push yourself outside of your comfort zone to build your inner strength as it relates to recovery? How can you kind of push yourself out? How do you push yourself outside of your comfort zone now, and how can you?
I've got to say, God and relationships. Um, and just being open to, you know what I mean? It comes down to honesty again, right?
Yeah,
I gotta be honest with you guys if I want to be able to get out of my comfort zone and do some new shit, right?
yep, yep.
Um, and you know, whether it's the relationship with my sponsor, people at work, clients at work, my boss, coworkers, my sister, my son, um, you guys, or even coming on here and sharing some stuff. I don't know who the hell is going to see this. You know what I mean? I don't know who's going to listen to my speaker CDs. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know who's going to be at the commitment on New Year's Eve when I have to travel out there and go share for a whole room full of people I don't know. It's just continuing, right? I'm gonna quote one of our books. It says that service is not a position on a committee; it is a posture of the
Of
heart.
the heart. Bam. Love it.
It
Love it.
it is a spiritual principle, and if I continue to be of service inside and outside, because we practice these principles in all of our affairs, I'm going to be put into positions here. Now I have to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to, and it doesn't just have to be at the end of the road,
Yeah.
right? I am put into a position every single day. Do something new, do something I shouldn't, right? And then there's all kinds of avenues in between, right? The road's not always narrow. Sometimes it gets broad. And when my road gets broad, I get a little worried and I got to reconnect and get encouragement from the men and the women that like are in my life and part of my personal fellowship upon which I stand today. And I'm secure in the love of that. And that's how I keep it going.
Love it, man. Love it. What about you? You want to ask that one more time, Milan?
I always like the question again. I
Yep.
get caught up in answers, man.
Absolutely. So do I. I watch Milan and he's like off and I'm like, we got to reel him back in. It's so cool. I love it.
Well,
So
it's like
how
I started like thinking of like, well, I mean, honestly, I've loved everything I've always heard from Mike, man. Dude, you're one of my recovery heroes, man.
when
For
I
sure.
called him before and I said, look, we got Mikey, and I didn't know that he had even seen you. I said, look, you have to trust me on this one. This man is amazing. He'll
I
even
trusted you right off the
yeah.
bat.
No, I know you did. I know you did, but I just wanted to know how special you were, man. You're an amazing dude. So what how can you push yourself outside of your comfort zone now that today to build your inner strength, which obviously inner strength is courage, right? So how can you push yourself outside of your comfort zone today to build that inner strength as it relates to recovery?
So my biggest struggle these days is working on my major defects of anger, intolerance, acceptance, and anxiety in different aspects of my life. And you know, the best thing that I've found is having honesty and the humility to actually say, hey, this is where I'm fucking up. Like, for me, I think we were just talking about this again the other day, but you know what? It's good when some stuff keeps getting brought up because to me, that means that it's probably relevant and it's probably important,
Okay.
but it's awareness. It's like if I am looking through the jaded lenses I don't ever really see what it is I've got to change.
Mhm.
And that was the magic inside my fourth step. My first fourth step was such a revelation to like I was like, man, I wish I had this tool my whole fucking life. You know, like anybody who's new to the program who's like, I'm gonna take 6 weeks and 2 years on my fourth step, I'm gonna have the best one ever. I'm like, man, don't wait too long. Don't wait too long. Like have a small orgasm and then go back and have a bigger one later. Like, but you know, like for me, it's just like if I can't see what it is I'm doing wrong clearly, and I think coming back to the honesty, but also coming to the humility. You know, like I think humility is a huge part of an honest personal inventory. You know, like there's just no way for me to stop seeing everybody
Mm.
else's problem. You know, like and that was for me, it was, it was so relieving to actually see that there was a solution to a lot of how I
Mhm.
felt in the world. Like I thought I was just going to be guilt ridden and shameful forever. Like if you had walked into my house and said to my wife, Milan's going to get rid of his guilt in 35 days in this treatment center, she would have bet you $100 million that she didn't have against that. Like guilt was something that was like injected into me through Catholic religion and just like repeated. Like, I mean, whew, I had original sin, man. I was a sinner before I was even born. Like, you know, and then it was like 10 commandments. Well, I did everything but kill someone on that list. So and my uncle's like, hey, Milan's the devil. Don't hang out with him, to my cousins. Like literally labeled the devil by like one of the only male figures in my life because I didn't have a dad. Like I feel like I had some real distortions that I needed to clear up. And you know, I could work a 14-hour shift and feel guilty for buying myself a chocolate bar on the way home. Like, isn't that outrageous? Like,
Yes.
even if I made $500 that day, I'd be like, shit, man. I don't know, dude. You shouldn't be getting that chocolate bar. Like, there would be this shit going on in my brain where it was like, and I'm like, no, no, you're worth it, man. You're worth this chocolate bar.
Mhm.
But it was a real like guilt, shame, and worthlessness that was the problem inside me. And then if I feel that about myself, then inside my mind, I'm shit shaming you for everything. And I'm never
Mhm.
going to have like zero self acceptance equals zero acceptance for you. Like a whole lot of lying and people pleasing might be going on, but down at the root of it, I'm still probably thinking nasty shit about you.
Mhm.
And I, it was nowhere to live. Like there was no serenity in that. And you know, and it was, I didn't even have the experience of that kind of serenity. Oh no, something happened here. There we go. Sorry, it went to like a screen share. I tapped my computer. But like, you know, I didn't have a moment of serenity until I got to those. So for me right now, it's like a cycle of chipping away at my defects over and over and over and over and over and over because you know, like in some ways I'm a slow learner. And if I'm in a bad frame of mind, tired, if I'm tired, if I'm whatever, wrong foods, tired,
Jerk
not
face
exercising,
Milan.
jerk face Milan is there. And guess what? He is like a shortcoming defect wizard. Like I'm just like, watch me spin the spell of
Mm,
jerk
a
face.
magical jerk face Milan.
Okay, Andrew, you.
Yeah. So yeah, y'all hit on a lot of stuff that I want to hit on. The honesty thing, gotta remain honest because you know, in the face of that weird decision that you gotta make or you know, gotta remain honest, man. You gotta remain honest in how you approach it because you're not gonna be able to work on the back side of it if you don't remain honest on the front side. So you touched on something with the people pleasing, Milan. Can't be people pleasing. We get into that mode of people pleasing, and I was taught a long time ago that that's one of the highest forms of dishonesty that you know self dishonesty that
Mm.
you can
Yeah, yeah.
practice. You know, if you think about that, if you're people pleasing somebody because you want them to feel a certain kind of way for their own good, like what are you doing? what are we doing here? So I got to stay out of the lane. Can get real easy to do that. Cause what does that do? That gets us outside of ourselves too, guys. Right. Like in an unhealthy way, I think. But the humility piece, Milan, you hit on that, man. I gotta remain humble and I gotta remain teachable. As soon as I get this thing figured out, I'm done. I'm done. I have to remain teachable. Being humble and knowing that like somebody has something that or there's somewhere where I want to be in my life. Um, Remaining humble enough to ask for help. You know, you've been married for this long. How have you done it? You've been employed for this long. How have you done it? How did you do certain things? And we talked about this before, Milan. People love talking about themselves, right, Mikey? People love
That's
talking about
right.
themselves. So you'd be surprised. Look, if you ask them, they're gonna fucking tell you, right? They're gonna tell
Woo!
you, and they
Right.
might even give you the secret sauce to it and the main ingredient, and you might just be better at them at that trait you want than them and
Mhm.
you might help them out in it, right? If you this thing is never ending, right? If you
That's
work
right.
into these spiritual principles and these programs, and yes, it's going to be uncomfortable because we've been using drugs and we have not been able to tap into those things. We have been we have a conscious separation, right? We talk about a conscious contact. We've been practicing a conscious separation from that God of our understanding for so long.
Mm.
So we got to lean into all that shit because he's ready for us. Whatever your higher power and your spiritual power is, like it is ready because you have been denying it for a long time. I've been living my life for 20 plus years, Mikey, as if there was no God, knowing there was because I had nothing to offer him.
Mm.
I had nothing to offer him. What am I going to ask him and pray to him for when I'm a fucking piece of shit? Right? What
You're going to take. You're not going to be given, is
Yeah,
what'll happen in
exactly,
that
exactly,
situation.
exactly. And it's
Yeah.
I'm given a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition, right,
Mm.
Mikey? And so,
That's
what does
right.
that tell me? I have a daily stay of execution from this thing. I don't have to be worried about 5 years down the road. It's gonna happen, right? As long as I do the right thing for the right reasons, I stay in that goodwill lane. I'm all about love, man. I stay in that love, remaining love and humble. And I know I'm gonna be okay, man. I know I'm gonna be okay. And if I can come into these meetings and just spread around that hope a little bit, right? And remain tapped into God, right? Grow or die, guys. Great outdoors, get off drugs, group of drug addicts. I don't give a shit what you call it. It doesn't have to be a deity. It doesn't have to look like Jesus. It can be whatever you want. As long as it talks back and it gives you
Right.
some answers. Because I'm having a relationship with this thing now, Mikey.
Mm.
When you do it and you honestly do it and you know what that higher power is of your understanding, you have a relationship with it.
That's right.
And it's
That's right.
something that you don't have there's no effort there. There's unconditional love. It's effortless. It's passion. It's not stressful. When you're doing something you don't like to do and it's stress, right? It's stress when you're doing something you're passionate about. It's love when you love, it's passion, right? It's effortless. So yes, that's my answer.
Woo!
Sir,
Very
this was
good.
Well,
fun.
man, this has been
This is number one with
amazing.
Mikey because you're coming on a lot. I don't give a shit. What'd you say,
Well,
Mikey? What you
yeah,
got?
I like basically Mike's the regular. We're gonna be
Yeah,
known as the Three
yeah,
Amigos,
yeah,
and we'll
yeah.
we'll invite like a fourth person on, and
I told him. I said we're gonna brainstorm. We'll get a
I'll
guy or
buy the
gal in here with
sombreros
Randy.
for us. I'll get us the big
Perfect.
sombreros. Then,
Thank you for coming on, Mike. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
and love you very much,
Yeah.
brother.
Listen,
yeah,
You're
yeah,
it's an
amazing.
honor to be here with you guys, and I would love to do it again
Do you have an
anytime, man.
outtake? You
A
want to give
blast.
us like an outgoing of just a nice leaving on?
I don't know, man. Like I can't say enough about this stuff, and just like I'm just I heard you talking about that you were doing this. It's a beautiful thing. It's being of service. Like I want to congratulate you guys. When I was talking to Andrew earlier, like he told me that you guys hit like 1,000 downloads.
yeah.
Congratulations. That's a big deal. Like
On
Thanks, man.
you're
Spotify now, wherever
you're
we're
you're
doing.
you're you're doing God's work. Like in recovery, we have a life-saving message. And you just got
Yeah,
1,000 downloads. That's not how many people listened. That's how many downloads you had.
That's
There's a
not
lot
good.
more people listening.
Dope.
Listen, man, it's out there. It's beautiful. Stay of service. Stay in it. Stay connected to stay protected and don't use no matter what.
From all the unexpected.
Boom.
Love it, man.
Hey,
Thank
hey,
you for part one.
when my spiritual needs are met, my living problems are reduced to a point of comfort. That's all I
Yes,
ever
I
wanted
love
was
it, man.
comfort.
I
Yeah.
love it. And
All
we
I
want to
ever
be
wanted.
content, right? With or without. We're content. We have to be
Right.
content. We have to in that serene
Absolutely.
6 or 7, man. That's where we got to live today.
I
Absolutely.
love both you guys.
Love
I
you
want to
guys.
say thanks
Love you
again, Mike,
too.
for coming.
Last
Thank
minute. That was
Andrew
awesome.
for pulling them on. I love that. And tune in next episode for more recovery fun, everyone. See you later.
Later,
We
guys.
love
Have a
you.
good night. See ya.
See ya.
Please help us help others. If you've liked what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.